Hi everyone, my name is Ingrid Josephine and I'm the events producer at StartSpace, powered by the State Library of Victoria. Welcome to today's business book chat with our special guest Kayleen Langford, who I will introduce shortly. On behalf of State Library Victoria, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional lands of all the Victorian Aboriginal clans and their cultural practices and knowledge systems. We recognise that the State Library collection holds traditional cultural knowledge belonging to Indigenous communities in Victoria and around the country. We support communities to protect the integrity of this information gathered from their ancestors in the colonial period. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, who have handed down these systems of practice to each new generation for millennia. Now, to firstly introduce StartSpace, we are a support service for early stage founders and business ideas for free and for everyone. We have a range of programs to help develop your business, including talks, workshops, mentoring and networking events, as well as hot desks within StartSpace at the State Library of Victoria for those who are looking for a place to work and connect in person. We also have a virtual community that you can loop in with via our Slack channel. Whatever your background, age, industry, or experience, and even if you're just starting out with an idea, we want to hear from you because we know that great ideas can come from anywhere. So find out more and join us at startspacehq.com. And next on to today's guest, Kayleen Langford. Kayleen is a passionate entrepreneur and coach, writer and speaker, and the founder and owner of Startup Creative, a hugely popular online platform, podcast, and print magazine that educates, inspires, and supports creative entrepreneurs and future innovators. Kayleen is also the author of How to Start a Side Hustle, which is published by Hardy Grant Books. Kayleen, thank you for joining us today and thank you for sharing your knowledge in this chat and in this book.
My pleasure. Thank you both StartSpace and Ingrid for having me here.
Such a pleasure and so excited to get into this with you, Kayleen. So first off, what inspired you to write the book? Did you have a burning reason or a need to enlighten your readers about something that you've discovered in your own business journey?
Yeah, well, the book I actually came out of the blue a little bit. I think the burning desire started when I was about 6 years ago working in my corporate job, feeling pretty burnt out, ready to kind of give up on it all, and threw myself into learning about startups and entrepreneurship from a desire to design the life of my dreams and to get paid doing what I love. And I started, researching that and looking into it and realizing that other people were doing it. And, I kind of had this idea that I knew how to make ideas a reality. And so I started understanding the business world and digesting it into a way that was straight up and easy, especially for creative entrepreneurs and people who had something to sell but didn't quite have the business aspect to it. So I kind of became a bit of a conduit between business lingo and creatives and small scale or small businesses and startups, and um, started teaching it, learning it, implementing it into my business, and then teaching it to other people. And I did that for 6 years, and I was running events called How to Start a Side Hustle, and was speaking on podcasts and all sorts. And then eventually, I was lucky enough to run into Hardy Grant at a event, and they came across Startup Creative and said, "Hey, we think you'd be great to write this book." So yeah, I never thought that I would. I was a C minus English student in school, and kind of public speaking got me through. So I never really considered myself a writer, but I definitely knew that I knew this content inside out. And I had built an online platform of about 100,000 people, spoken to thousands of people on stages, and coached thousands of people one-on-one. So I knew that I had real life firsthand experience of how to start a side hustle.
Amazing. So leading straight on to Side Hustle, the book is called How to Start a Side Hustle.
Mhm.
For the audience out there, to briefly define, a side hustle is a piece of work or a job that you get paid for in addition to your main job. So there's your main hustle and your side hustle.
Mhm.
So Kayleen, why are side hustles such a great idea and why have they become so popular in recent years?
Yeah, well, I think that when I started out, a lot of people were like, 1 in 3 businesses fail in the first 3 years, or, all of these kind of scare tactics. And in my opinion, it's because people don't have the right advice, or they don't take feedback, or they jump in maybe before testing the marketplace. So yes, that statistic has been real, but there's some really practical steps that you can do to avoid being that statistic. And it gets thrown away around way too much that people just opt out, right? So a side hustle is an opportunity to test an idea. There's two really important things that you want to test here. Do you like offering this? Because there is a chapter in the book that talks about, what are you passionate about? What are you good at? What are you naturally, given feedback on? And can you make that a viable business? Because, that everyone wants to get paid doing what they love, right? But what some people find is that once they take what they love and start selling it, or giving it out to the world, they might not enjoy mass producing, or they don't like the feedback that they're getting, or they can't sell it at a price that they want. So a side hustle is an opportunity for you to not take too big of a risk. You don't necessarily need to jump in and quit your job and make work out of your parents' garage, like the dream startup story. You get to maybe spend an evening a week, or on your weekends, or cut back to 4 days a week work. See if you like delivering it. See if the customer likes receiving it. And if there's enough people who are willing to pay for it, that could make it an actual business. And then from there, you're able to then determine, all right, do I need investment? Do I need to, quit my job and give this more time? And you can make a more calculated decision that's less risky. And when you're making that decision from a place of, this is still safe, you're going to be more creative, you're going to be clearer headed, and you don't have to, move really quickly and really fast. And you can, yeah, be more conscious about how you're getting the idea off the ground, and reduce the risk of it not working.
Yeah, right. So it's it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. You don't have to go all in immediately with the business, put all your personal money into it straight away, put all your personal time into it
Mm,
straight away. You can scale it up alongside your main career. As you said, evenings or weekends, and get to that equilibrium of knowing that your test idea is working, and then
yeah,
know how much time and energy you can put into it and keep putting into it to get to where you
yeah.
need to go, rather than have the pressure of, oh my goodness, I can't pay rent, I'm going broke.
Yeah. And I think that's it. If you put too much pressure on your side hustle, or your brand new business, to have to replace a six-figure income, or wherever or all from the get-go, then it becomes, and I'm sure we'll get into this, it becomes about you and needing to pay your bills, rather than what are you doing for the customer, or why does this business need to exist? And just quickly, the other half of that question is, why is it so popular? I think, especially considering the state of the world that we've just experienced in 2020, we've kind of, I would say that we've been in a bit of a trance, and I was there before, where we do our 9 to 5, and we've maybe built careers to a certain state, and we've assumed, this is the role that we've got to play in life, or the career path that we want to take. And when the whole world changes overnight and doesn't ever go back to the way that it used to be, I think that's enough of a break in the system for people to say, hang on a second, what am I doing? And am I really happy? Do I love what I do? Or is now the time to maybe start thinking about that thing that I've been, thinking about for 2 years? And maybe if I get this book, it'll help me to get it off the ground.
Yeah, awesome. I think, yeah, we've definitely found ourselves in a flux across the last year or so around the world, and also seen lots of new ideas and technologies come out from lots of businesses, and lots of
Mm,
businesses started up in the last year. So it is actually a time that's ripe for innovation, and there's never been a better time to start a business or explore an idea.
mm,
So, Kayleen, in your book, you speak about how research shows that people who build businesses based on a problem that they have experienced personally will be more likely to produce a solution that impacts on other people's lives. So, what's your advice for people when they're thinking about like a winning business idea?
mm.
Um, knowing that there are so many products and services out there, how can someone even hope to get an idea off the ground when there actually are so many ideas and products out there?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that everyone should consider from the beginning. And back to that quote from the book around if people build businesses doing something like from their own personal experience, then you've experienced either a pain point or a gap in the market or something that didn't quite meet your needs about that goods or that services that you purchased or interacted with, or perhaps you just haven't been able to find it in the way that you want to receive it. So that's where a lot of people then go, oh, I should do that because no one else is doing it. Or, I'd pay for that. Or all of my friends are looking for something like that. So that's what they call a gap in the market. I try not to be too lingo-y because when I started, I was like, it just goes over your head and you feel like you're instantly out of your depth. So it's as simple as noticing that there's something missing in the marketplace that you think more people that people would like. So you want to consider what's unique about the way that you're delivering it. And for example, with Startup Creative, it was simple as our tone of voice and our design. So when I went looking for business advice, there was a lot of, corporate looking government sites that had black and white, hundreds of page documents about how to write a business plan. And when I picked those up, I was like, what's this? And there was so many words that just kind of threw me, and it was really ugly to look at. So everything that we've done with Startup Creative is like, let's just say it how it is. It's straight up business advice, and let's design it beautifully. Let's make this inspiring to sit down and fill out a business plan, or put it in relatable tone of voice, and also talk about the mindset stuff and everything as well. So you want to figure out what your unique point is, and not everyone's going to have a huge, big, massive like the Ubers and the Airbnbs. Yes, those ideas come and they're amazing, and they're also very hard to get off the ground because you're actually teaching people a new behavior. But yeah, it can be as simple as, are you going to deliver it cheaper? Is it going to be more sustainable? Yeah, who exactly wants this, and where are you going to kind of stand out a little bit? And in terms of like, yes, it's a very saturated marketplace, but I think as consumers we're getting more picky about the kind of brands that we do and don't want to engage with. So if you've got a brand that's built in a deep core value and a unique kind of niche, yeah, we're looking for those things. We're looking for the hyper niche brands and the people who are really transparent about their supply chains and all of those things. So, I mean, in my opinion, if you can find something that is really unique, and there's a gap, and again, this whole idea of a side hustle is go out and find them and see if there's enough of them.
And test that out
Mm,
and see if that gap that you have found resonates with other people.
yeah.
Yeah, cool. So, Kayleen, in the book, there are lots of activities and worksheets to fill out, which, if you love practical things to do, I don't think people can see very well, but there are definitely lots of tables and worksheets and activities to fill out to guide people through some of the practical basics that they need when setting up a business. Can you share with us from all the experience that you've had setting up your own business and then coaching other people in business, what's the really critical thing that business founders need to do first when starting the business? What are the really important things to learn how to do yourself and to focus on? And then when should you engage a professional outside help for other
Mm.
things? Or is there a stage when you should start doing stuff and then later on get some help?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, this one really comes down to the mindset side of business, right? Because I can sit here and give you the most practical plan. Like you can go, hey, this is my idea. And I'll be like, boom, 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 boom. Here's what you need to do. Off you go. And then you take that list and you sit at your desk and you're like, okay, I just have no motivation to do this, or like, can I really do this? Or, when am I going to find the time? And so my thing first and foremost is, why do you want to start this? And there's a whole big section in the very beginning of the book, because it's going to be hard and it's sometimes going to be tedious, and you're going to have to solve problems that you have no idea how to solve, or sacrifice a weekend or sacrifice a dinner out so that you can, buy a website template or whatever. There's going to be those moments where it's difficult. And if you don't have a really deep sense of like, I have to do this and I can't not do it, then when it gets hard, or you get a no, or you come up against a roadblock, or it didn't quite do what you thought it would do, you're going to walk away. So have a really deep sense of why you're doing it in the first place. And then in terms of like the actual practical skill sets and things, when I started out, I tried to understand all aspects of my business from the beginning, from building my website to branding, copywriting, everything, so that when it came to, so that I was across the business. So there was nothing that was out of my, if something went wrong, I wasn't left in the dark. But it also, there's the times where I felt like I was procrastinating about certain parts of my business. So copywriting, funnily enough, was one of those things where, and almost every coaching client I have says, oh, I just can't write my about copy. Like no one likes writing about themselves. So when you find yourself procrastinating and that's that reoccurring thing on your to-do list where you keep working around it, that's probably a good time to outsource it, because business and startups especially it's about momentum, and it doesn't, it's not an overnight success, and it's not as easy as it looks, but it really is taking one step at a time and putting one foot in front of the other. And you have to keep that momentum, because otherwise it'll be really easy to get derailed. And then, so yeah, if there's those times where you find like that's really holding me back and I can't progress until I've done that thing, it's probably a good time to outsource. And a lot of people are like, oh, spending money that I don't have when I'm first starting out. You want to flip that mindset, and you want to say, what's the return on the investment? If I pay $400 for somebody to write my about copy, or to, for me, I got professional headshots done as well. And if I pay somebody to do those, then my business can launch and I can start making money. Or I'll have professional headshots, so I'll feel more professional and be able to charge more, or people will take me more seriously when I walk into a meeting. So look at what the return on that outsourcing investment is, because sometimes people will just go outsource, outsource, outsource. But look at your to-do list and go, what is the practical next step that needs to happen? And if can I do that? And if I can't do it, or I'm procrastinating about doing it, now's probably a good time to give it to somebody who's better at this than me, so that you can spend your time doing what you're good at, because you are the entrepreneur, you're the dreamer. And if you get stuck in the details, the business is going to suffer.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Or, think about, there's often many competing priorities on the to-do list as an entrepreneur. So if it's outsourcing the copywriting, and that gives you more time and focus on getting across your financials and your data, and working out that piece that you need to, then the return on investment there is, really important if
Mm,
it's keeping you going on another really critical part of the business.
yeah. So what are you good at? Where are your skill sets lie? You focus there, because they'll be quicker, faster, you'll save money. And then there's going to come a time where you're going to need to employ a coach or a web developer or a graphic designer, or a freelancer or something. So
Yeah, and that's a skill as well, that the better you get working with other people and other contractors, that's also building a skill that maybe is not immediately apparent to people in entrepreneurship, but it is also about collaborating and learning to manage when perhaps you haven't done that before.
mm,
Um, Kay, you talk a lot about mindset. I think that's really important for entrepreneurs. So, talking about why, personal mindset, and the idea of limiting beliefs in your book as well. So, why do these things make a difference between side hustle success and side hustle sadness? And can you share some of your best hacks to help overcome challenges that people might have in these areas around mindset and limiting beliefs, and their why?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a limiting belief in this is kind of dabbling in psychology and human behavior now, which I'm not an expert on at all, but I am very interested in and read a lot of books on and follow some experts in. But it's pretty common that all of us can acknowledge times in our lives where we kind of hold ourselves back, whether that's self-doubt, procrastination, feeling like an imposter, having the voice in your head that says, oh, you're not the right person for the job, or you can't do it, or there's not enough time, or I'm not a morning person, I've never run a business. All of those things are little voices in our head. And often, what psychology starts to talk about is that they've come from a learnt behavior or belief or a voice that we've heard earlier on in our years. So some sort of experience or something has happened that has planted that belief system in our head. And the beauty of them is that once we observe them and we name them, we can start to catch them and we can rewire them. So they don't have to keep you small. And I guarantee you, after running a business for 6 years and interviewing people in my magazine and on my podcast and coaching successful people, I have seen over and over again that the biggest thing that holds dreams back and ideas from getting off the ground is whether somebody can back themselves and act in the face of fear or self doubt or uncertainty. Because there's a way to experience that feedback of being like, oh, this feels uncomfortable, and go, this is change, or I'm creating a new reality, or I'm doing something different for my life. So that's okay. It's gonna feel uncomfortable. Or you can take that feedback and be like, oh, yeah, I see, I should never have done it. I'm just going to go back over here and pretend I never had that idea or never told anyone about it. So, the beauty of that is that you can catch it. What is the reoccurring voice in your head that's telling you, that's holding you back? And you can go down the psychology path with a professional and be like, I wonder where this came from. Or you can just start catching it and be like, nope, that's a limiting belief. And I'm not going to let that keep me small. I want what's on the other side of, this comfort zone. And I'm not prepared to just keep, wired in my same reality, because as humans, it is a survival mechanism to stay inside the comfort zone, because we're less exposed to danger, we're less exposed to criticism and shame and feedback, or being rejected or told no. So, which are all really scary emotions for humans that we have evolved to not want to experience. So, trying to do something you've never done before, like start a business, is going to put you well outside of your comfort zone. If you can learn to counter it and feel it and experience it and still find a way to push beyond it, then chances are you'll bring your idea to life. And yeah, there's not one successful person I met who hasn't experienced fear or self-doubt. The only difference is that they've learnt to be able to silence it and act anyway.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I mean, we have talked a bit about statistics about when businesses um, aren't successful. And there is a statistic out there that actually it's probably usually people's third business, or this kind of the third kind of iteration and tweak to their business idea is where it gets successful and things really take off. So it's pursuing through testing, shifting your offering, working out exactly where to go, and that might take a bit. And you are going to hit some roadblocks and some doubt, and have to get over that to the next
Mm,
thing, and to get to that other side.
yeah.
Um, Great advice, Kayleen. So, what is one piece of practical advice that you want the audience to take away today, either for their career, their future businesses or side hustles, or any personal advice from the experience of writing this book and bringing all this information out for us to learn?
Yeah, I mean, I always say this and I'll stick to it, is just start. Like, there is nothing better than, and even if it's reading one page of this book, that's starting, right? Because you've got to get in the game, and there's only so much you can learn from sitting and planning and researching. You've got to start somewhere, and that the beauty of this book is that it gives you a place to start, and it might be activities and or telling someone, or there's advice in there about getting your cheer squad or like your support team around you, activities on how to come up with your target market or refine your idea. So all of those are little steps, right? But if you sit back and go, oh yeah, one day, you're going to do your own head in, and that's where you actually feed the self-doubt, because you're like, see, I didn't do anything again about it. So I really do recommend taking small action every single day, no matter what stage of your business you're at, because there's also momentum comes with that. And I think I mentioned it before, it's like once you start and you achieve something, it might be registering your business name or securing your Instagram handle or telling someone that you're going to do this and asking them to keep you accountable. All of those things are little steps in the direction, and each time you achieve one of those tasks, your brain and your body will give you a dopamine hit, and that dopamine hit is wired to keep you moving forward. And it rewards you for achieving. So get in that game, give it a crack, and just get out there. Try and keep those limiting beliefs at bay for sure. And surround yourself with people who get it. If you've come from a world where no one's doing this, then get a coach or join a networking group, or come into Start Space and put yourself around other people who are like, yep, we want to give this a crack. And to the point before around fear and self-doubt and everything, it's also all of that is feedback, right? If you can just take it as feedback, and whether it's a rejection or no one's buying or everyone's buying, everything you do in your business is feedback, and your job is to observe what's working and what's not working, and take it on board and be humble enough to ask for advice and to listen to your customer and follow the energy. Because if you can follow it to where your customer is giving you good feedback, then you're going to win over a solid little tribe who are going to go out and advertise on your behalf and keep coming back for more of what you have to offer, which makes business flow much easier and grow and to scale as well. So yeah, listen to all of it, even though some days it might hurt. Ask yourself, what is it here to teach me or to show me? And if it gets really scary, really sit down and ask yourself, is this a real perceived threat, or is this me holding myself back? And then take action.
Yeah, take action, find out what to do with that information, and learn from it, and make the changes to get in the direction that you want to go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kayleen. I'm just going to, that's almost all we've got time to today, but I'd just like to recap with some following tips from Kayleen. So, side hustles are great because it's an opportunity to test an idea before you go all in and go full time, and puts too much pressure on the idea before you even um, can get it going. So, always good to use that safe environment to test your ideas. And advice of when you're coming up against a block or procrastination of something on your big to-do list as an entrepreneur, sit down and think, okay, is this a point where I can get a professional to help me or to advise me to free up my time and my headspace to work on something else? We also talked about how mindset is really important to keep going as an entrepreneur. And I think often entrepreneurs have a vision which maybe not everyone understands. So to keep going with that, and that you will be going out of your comfort zone and that it's going to be hard. But if you really believe in that vision for your product or your service, the business that you want to create, that you can learn to push beyond that comfort zone pressure and bring your idea to life. And lastly, the biggest and kind of most basic advice is just to start, get in the game, try it out, and take small actions each day. Keep crossing off those little wins and little things to do as you keep learning and upskilling and start seeing success, and that momentum will just keep on going. So to read How to Start a Side Hustle, you can access this in the browsing collection at StartSpace, or you can buy your own copy from our friends at Readings Bookshop, who have a shop in the State Library or online at their website. So Kayleen, where can people head to learn more about you and to connect?
Yeah, thank you for having me. You can check us out on Instagram. So it's Startup Creative. We also have a podcast called Startup Creative, and our website is startupcreative.com.au. And there's a contact form in there if you'd like to get in touch about any events, coaching, things that we're doing.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Kayleen. It's been wonderful to chat with you. I really appreciate you sharing with us today, and for creating this helpful resource for those starting out with side hustles and building early stage businesses. So those out there in the audience, please give Kayleen a virtual round of applause. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and big thanks to Kayleen.
Enjoy the book, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.